Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister. We're in Bible study. We are in Leviticus, and we're doing chapter 2. We're in the NIV, and we will be through 2025. We want to read as many versions of the Bible. We will get to the KJV in 2026, the Catholic Bible in 2028, and then we've got like 3 more versions up there right now, including the ESV, the Good News Bible, and then the new KJV, so that we would be able to see what the differences are between the 1873 and when they edited it again. Because I don't know. I've never actually looked at the new KJV before. So, in this video, though, we are in Leviticus, or the continuation of the Mosaic Law. We are in chapter 2, and we are doing all of chapter 2, which it really is only going to verse 16. And this one we're dealing with grain offerings. The previous one, the burnt offerings, were all about meat things. So, which was, I stopped partway through and apologize to any vegetarians who might be watching. This would probably be more what you would have been doing. Because, they needed offerings of vegetables and grain and all kinds of other things too. So it's like you could have survived in their world and not had to, eat any of that if you didn't want to. You might have been limited to what they had in the area though. So the grain offering, but they at least had that. When someone brings a grain offering to the Lord, his offering is to be of fine flour. He is to pour oil on it, put incense on it, and take it to Aaron's sons, the priests. The priest shall take a handful of the fine flour and oil together with the incense and burn this memorial portion on the altar, an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons. This is a most holy part of the offering made to the Lord by fire. If you bring a grain offering baked in an oven, it is to consist of fine flour, cakes made without yeast and mixed with oil, or, and you got C, or and, wafers made without yeast and spread with oil. So cracker form or just unrisen bread. And you're like, there's a difference? Yes. Yes, there is, actually. There's a difference in that dough. So, if your grain offering is prepared on a griddle, it is to be made of fine flour mixed with oil and without yeast. Crumble it and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. So, you've got to pour the oil on it for it to be a grain offering. If your grain offering is cooked in a pan, then it is to be made of fine flour and oil. Bring the grain offering made of these things to the Lord, present it to the priest, who shall take it to the altar. He shall make a memorial portion from the grain offering and burn it on the altar as an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons. It is a most holy part of the offering made to the Lord by fire. So if you wanted to bring baked goods to them instead, you were allowed to do that as well. Every grain offering you bring to the Lord must be made without yeast, for you are not to burn any yeast or honey in an offering made to the Lord by fire. That's interesting. The yeast part, okay, because, the unleavened bread. But honey, either. You may bring them to the Lord as an offering of first fruits, but they are not to be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma. Right, so you can bring them as an offering, but they're not going to be burnt. The priests are going to use them. That's what that means. Season all your grain offerings with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offering. Add salt to all your offerings. Okay? Who knew, right? God has a preference there. If you bring a grain offering of first fruits to the Lord, Offer crushed heads of new grain roasted in the fire. Okay. Put oil and incense on it. It is a grain offering. Then the priest shall burn the memorial portion of the crushed grain and the oil together with all the incense and an offering made to the Lord by fire. So that's if you didn't turn the grain into flour and it was still raw grain instead. You can offer that too. Just you still have to put oil on it and incense. And I find it interesting about the salt. Now, I know, like, salt. That was so, like, no. They had, they were there's mountains of salt around the Dead Sea. There's a whole bunch of salt out here in the desert, too. In fact, a lot of the salt that people consume, like Morton's salt, they get that from out here in the desert by me. Not I'm near a city, that way out in the middle of the desert. They have entire plants, out there taking salt out of the ground. So there are places where it is quite plentiful, and then there are places in which it is quite valuable. Now it's quite commonplace. But back then, when things were harder to move around, it was one of those things, kind of like sort of among the Silk Road. Remember, the Silk Road basically ran right through this area too. So all kinds of valuable things. Until the next video, friends.